Whenever I think of Bakhmut, I immediately hear the sound of silence playing in my head. Hello darkness, my old friend. Honestly, the name Bakhmut will be forever associated with great suffering and slaughter. It will be the Stalingrad of the modern era, a battle that frankly never should have happened in this supposed era of enlightenment. But such is the case with unwanted war. Before we get started in this short video, everything mentioned in this video is either readily available online or my weak-ass opinions based on years of experience. I am not divulging secrets or anything I believe is sensitive or the key to the Great Offensive. If there are any Russians watching, privet mudak. I am just briefly chatting about the attacks around Bakhmut. In a typical Prigozhin maneuver, it appears that the bald-headed leader of Wagner has managed to swerve the Ukrainian army and evacuate his troops just in time. Handing over Bakhmut to the regular army on or around the 1st of June, him and his team got the heck out of Dodge as fast as they could, seemingly only delayed a fraction by the homicidal lieutenant colonel who tried to mine their route out. Given the success of the Ukrainian army almost immediately after, you must wonder, did Prigozhin know what was coming? Given the battle of attrition they had just fought, I think it's highly doubtful that Wagner could have held out against these counterattacks and by withdrawing, left them with the honor of taking Bakhmut whilst dismissing any of the blame for its potential loss. Some of you may say, Bakhmut was an obvious choice for the counteroffensive, and you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. The problem with that assertion is that I don't believe this is necessarily the counteroffensive. It still smacks of being localized. That of course doesn't mean that any substantial breakthroughs won't be thoroughly exploited by Ukraine. Let's be honest, the Western machinery isn't anywhere to be seen, a few misidentified combine harvesters aside. Are the Leopards etc. going to be used as the cavalry was in days gone by, not to create the breakthrough but rather to pour through the gap attacking the rear and creating sweeping flanking maneuvers that encircle and overwhelm? Only time will tell. Given the predominance of mines and the fairly low numbers of these MBTs, I would think that this is a safer option. It only takes a few mines to ruin your day. The Ukrainian 3rd Separate Brigade is pushing up towards Klishchivka from the south, with the most recent reports claiming they were near to entering the town. In case you didn't know, those immensely powerful fighters from Azov now form part of that unit, and they are largely facing soldiers from the Russian 72nd Motor Rifle Brigade that got turned upside down in Volodar, so have questionable effectiveness. Interestingly, there have been reports of artillery hitting targets in Opatny, with 2 MBTs being destroyed. This operation was done by the tactical group Atom, who used UAVs to direct fire. So was Atom reducing possible reinforcements for their operation or clearing the way for a future advance? It seems like just yesterday we were watching the battle for the Kromov Road in the north with Stugna Battalion and Gana Group doing some unbelievable work in keeping the Russians at bay and retaining that exit route out of the city. Now the advance has gone beyond that and penetrated into Berkivka, with Russian units reporting that they are cut off from supplies and effectively encircled near the reservoir in that area. The 1307th Regiment did a video laying out their misfortunes, including a total collapse of their command structure, no resupply or replacements, and of course no artillery support. There have been reports of Russians fleeing for all they are worth. In a rather official-sounding statement, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine announced the transition from defensive to offensive operations, as well as the advancement over the past day by 200 to 1,000 meters in different sectors of the front in the Bakhmut area. In addition, the commander of the Eastern Group of Forces of Ukraine, Colonel General Alexander Sursky, said that Ukrainian troops were advancing on the flanks of Bakhmut. After the shock of these attacks subsided, the Russians started moving in reserves, which should reduce the effectiveness of other defensive positions, giving further opportunities to the Ukrainians. All the while this is happening, Prigozhin continues to sit on his soapbox and sling barbs. It's hilarious the bad-mouthing he gets away with. He reminds me of a younger brother who just won't shut up. Although I am sure one of these days he will be on the sharp end of a blade. As already mentioned, the regular army doesn't love them, so you can expect more tension and more aggression between the two entities. Understandably, the information available is limited from the Ukrainian side, unless you are a Russian mill blogger, in which case, you either believe the end is nigh or you are neck deep in a 10-inch line of the purest white copium, snorting for all you are worth. I am going to close this off by saying, I like what Ukraine is doing here. Everybody was sitting around waiting for the big hit to explode on the Russian line, obliterating it completely and leaving the road open to Moscow. But when you combine what is happening around Bakhmut with the fighting further in the south and of course the Lawrence of Arabia stuff happening in Belgorod amongst other parts of Russia, you get a feel that it's more like death by 1,000 cuts, with the potential for a quick slice to finish them off if required.